Back at it again. Here we are with an Absolute Carnage custom action figure. This figure is based upon the Darkest Night? Basically the Batman who laughs, who turns into a god. He gains that godly essence, that ultra power up, and this is kind of the form he takes. It's a Mcfarlane base body. As soon as I saw the release of this figure, I knew instantly that it was Absolute Carnage. Threw up a post on Instagram. Everybody else also had this similar mindset. It makes a lot of sense to turn this thing into Absolute Carnage. I'm not the first to do this, and I won't be the last to do this. No stand needed. This guy may be tall and gangly, but he can stand up incredibly well due to the modification in his lower kneecaps. They had to be altered because the original figure is kind of on a hunch permanently, so we'll go through all the different bits and bobs of the articulation and how it was changed up. But here's a quick size comparison. This is the Sunfire mold and the Superior Arc mold. And here he is next to two large characters. You've got on the left a Marvel Select Hulk, and on the right a Monster Venom mold, Toxin. Now, you can plainly see that this guy is really tall, and that is obviously on purpose due to his design. When the customer reached out to me, he wanted basically the original Absolute Carnage that I did years ago, and that just isn't going to happen again. So this was kind of like a compromise. This was almost like a quick and easy version of that. Still retaining everything that makes the custom Absolute Carnage, but without the absolute huge heavy toll in workload and price tag. That's the important thing here. This is commission friendly. Now, just quickly running through some of the details that were involved. The shoulders needed to be joint prepped, so I had to take out a large portion of that socket to avoid paint rub. As always, that's going to be a factor within custom action figures. You may see on the left image there that there is drill holes within the arms. This allowed the tendrils to kind of get lodged in there to give it a real solid lock when it's super glued and then sculpted over, and then I apply acrylic resin to completely lock and solidify the product into place, and therefore those tendrils just aren't going to go anywhere. They do still have their flexibility as it is a soft plastic from the original Absolute Carnage. The torso midsection had to undergo quite a heavy amount of work, whether it be dremeling out the inner torso to allow more range, re-engineering that ball joint to give it more range. The lower socket needed a waist swivel, so there was a fair bit of work and engineering that had to go into the midsection just to get it to function, and you will see in the articulation how much range this guy actually has. It's huge. Now, in terms of the kneecaps, they needed to be drilled out. The peg holes themselves needed to have them covered up because they just looked ugly. The knees obviously have had quite a drastic rework to make it more accurate to the design, but let's be honest, the overall design of the Darkest Night actually has all the work done for you. The heavy lifting is all there, the sculpt detail is all there. Going into this custom, my main goal this time around was actually to just get the vibrancy to be as possible, because I'm a big fan of color and color theory, and I just really wanted that red, brown, orange flare, that fire almost coming out of the chest, that vibrancy to kind of just glow and have all the airbrush work accentuate all the sculpt detail that was already existing on this figure. So the neck on this guy was pretty alright, but it wasn't amazing, so I did splice in a Taskmaster from the Bucky Cat mold into the neck joint and into the head socket, so he has insane range. A big key factor the customer really wanted to have huge articulation for ACBEA posing articulation. Who doesn't like articulation? They're action figures, they're supposed to move, right? So that neck has side to side, up and down, you name it. I tried to force in as much as physically possible to get it just be crazy. And not only that, but it helps that I completely sculpted that head from scratch. A lot of the heavy lifting was done already, but there was adjustments in the jaw and the frame of the face. The shoulders haven't been touched, so all of this is stock standard. If you have this figure already, there's nothing modified about these whatsoever. And I do have to say, I've bought a fair few Mcfarlane figures, and for the most part I've been incredibly disappointed with their articulation. They lack severely, but this one is actually really good, and I highly recommend the Darkest Night as a base figure. Going about the spine, a little bit different this time. I still wanted huge range of articulation. I could make a joke here, but I'm not going to. Moving on. So he crouches over a huge amount. What about the side-to-side pivot? So he has a side-to-side and an ab crunch in the upper torso, as well as a waist swivel on a double ball peg that allows kind of like a tilting mechanism. It's almost like a pivot. It's ever so strange, and those joints are incredibly stiff. Now, there is a little bit of looseness in the lower ball joint that was really difficult to kind of maneuver around. As you can see, there's a bit of wobble there. That was obviously tightened up and fixed before sent to the customer, because we don't want that wear and tear when messing with customs, you know, trying to figure out their articulation and working around the whole paint rub scenario. You're going to come across looseness, and my go-to is Kiki. I like to leave that in the joints for a good week before I send it to the customer. And it says it works over 24 hours, but honestly, if you give it a week, I noticed that it's rock solid, kind of like those Storm collectibles when you first get them out the package and they have that squeak. That's how I like my articulation. Ultra stiff, especially with a character that's this gangly. You know, he's going to have that toppling over type scenario. When it comes to the knees, like I mentioned earlier, he had them almost like in a crouched pose. They were ever so weird, and I just removed the plastic that allowed them to be completely straight. I'm not sure why they were designed that way, but Mcfarlane has a real strange way of making articulation. Strong believer of, if it's not broken, don't fix it. Within the $20 price point in which these figures are, or used to be if you're watching this video in the future, because let's be honest, with the world's economy, we're looking at $40 for figures that used to be $20. There is a basic format in which Hasbro, as scummy as that company is, have a great articulation format. Mcfarlane just has to take those ideas and recipes and put his amazing sculpt over the top of it. Then you get the best of both worlds. Again, that only applies for that $20 price tag, but I digress. Thanks for watching, guys. I really appreciate it. And if you enjoyed the video, like, subscribe, and we do have a Patreon. We have a fair few members over there now, and basically all it is all the work in progress that I work on throughout the year, step by step by step, going through every single little detail of what I do on a daily basis. We have ideas, customs that I plan on making in the future. I hope you guys are willing to go check it out. There's a link in the description. First month is free. And with that being said, thank you to absolutely every single person that supports me. Really appreciate you. Thank you so much. And I'm going to catch you guys on the next one. Thank you.